The movie begins with a woman named Holly Bergman tearfully inserting a needle into her skull. Later, Holly walks into a hotel where she meets with another woman who takes her to a party at the hotel. Following the woman's instructions, Holly grabs a knife and stabs a man at the party to death. The partygoers panic and flee in horror. After killing the man, Holly reaches for a gun in her bag and proceeds to take her life, but she isn't able to go through with it. The police arrive, and Holly points her gun at them, forcing the policemen to spray her with bullets and finish her off. Just as Holly passes away, elsewhere, a woman named Tasya Vos wakes up from a deep sleep, reeling from pain as if she was the one shot to death. It is revealed that Vos is actually the assassin who takes control of others' bodies to carry out her hits. Through an implant installed through the unwitting host's brain, Vos can use a special machine to insert her consciousness into their minds. She returns to her own body by forcing the host to commit suicide at the end of each job. Due to the amount of time she spends imitating other people, Vos struggles with increasing detachment from her own identity and cannot fully separate her work from her interactions with her husband, Michael, and son, Ira. In a debriefing session with Vos's handler and retired assassin Girder, meant to help her reconnect with her real identity, Vos sorts through a series of objects associated with personal memories. She correctly identifies her grandfather's pipe and a butterfly she pinned and framed as a child. Vos comments that after she killed the butterfly, she felt guilty, and she carries that guilt still to this day. After examining her report, Girder tells her that her results are normal. There's no evidence of charring or false psyche from her time as Holly Bergman. After making sure Vos didn't notice any anomalies during the interface, Girder happily announces that their next contract is almost finalized, and it's a big one. But Vos tells her boss that she needs some time off to repair her relationship with her husband, much to Girder's dismay. Girder is critical of her desire to remain connected to her family and expresses the belief that Vos would be a better killer without personal attachments. Vos then heads home, and before reuniting with her family, she practices assuming her normal persona the same way she practices impersonating her hosts. Michael and baby Ira are happy to see Vos and warmly welcome her inside. Later, Vos's family is joined by Michael's colleagues for dinner. Michael chats them up, but Vos looks disinterested in the guests. After the guests leave, Michael makes love to Vos, but she looks lost in her thoughts. She is being haunted by the flashbacks of slitting her victim's throat. Afterwards, Vos calls her boss and tells her that she has changed her mind and she's ready for the next job. Michael catches her on the phone and expresses his disappointment. He tells her that he wants her to spend more time with him and Ira, but all Vos could think and see is imaginary blood streaming down Michael's neck. Despite Michael's reservations, Vos leaves to meet her boss. Girder recounts her days as an assassin and says that now she is barely able to stay awake at night due to her age. Therefore, Girder chose Vos as a replacement, but she now admits that sometimes she doubts her choice because of Vos's inability to sever ties with her family that drag her down at work. Vos assures her that she is trying her best, and Girder briefs her about the next job. The next host is an ex-drug dealer named Colin Tate. Tate doesn't have a family, and he is engaged to a woman named Ava Parse, daughter of John Parse, CEO of a data mining company called Zuthru. Girder is planning to portrait Tate as the unstable lover who feels diminished by his new family. With Ava having all the power in the relationship, Tate becomes more and more erratic until he breaks and kills John, Ava, and himself. Vos then gets to work and starts spying on Tate to learn his daily routine and mannerisms. Girder's henchwomen then kidnap Tate and install the chip in his brain. John Parse is throwing a dinner party a day after tomorrow, during which Vos must carry out the assassination. In the interim, Vos will work to establish Tate's unstable and erratic behavior. Girder's doctor has rated Vos's compatibility with Tate at only 3 days, so she has no room for error. If Vos stays in Tate's body for more than that time, she could experience severe damage to her brain. Moreover, the implant web will begin to dissolve after 5 days. Vos can use the calibration device at least once a day if she suffers persistent disorientation. Vos is instructed to pull the trigger to finish her host's life herself this time, before she is sent into a deep sleep. With the touch of a button, Vos gains control of Tate's body and quietly sneaks into his shared apartment with Ava at night. The next day, Vos wakes up next to Ava and lies to her that his flight got delayed. That's why he arrived late. Ava notes that he is acting a bit strange, and Vos charges it to jet lag. Afterwards, Vos heads to the Zuthru HQ, effortlessly passing the company's security measures. As soon as she enters the premises, she is approached by a man named Eddie, who starts telling her about his vulgar escapades with East Coast girls. Vos shakes him off and goes to Tate's workstation. She tries to work, but she is told to speed up by the computer because she is moving at a snail's pace. She tries to focus, but only for her to seemingly lose control of Tate's body. Afraid, Vos rushes to the washroom, where she sees Tate trying to regain control of his body. Moments later, Vos regains consciousness on the bathroom floor, and a worried Girder asks her why she went out of reach. However, Vos tells her that everything's fine and she couldn't speak because she was with someone else. Vos knows something's up, and she has started seeing imaginary things, but she chooses to ignore it. After work, Vos passes by her actual home to catch a glimpse of Michael and Ira. As a result, she arrives late at Tate's home, where Ava is eagerly waiting for her fiancé. Ava is with her friends snorting coke to celebrate Ava's friend Moira's promotion. Moira also works at Zuthru, but Vos doesn't remember Tate's meeting with her. Moira asks Vos why Tate would work at the mine, which she calls a low-level sweatshop job. Ava reveals that her father gave Tate the job, and her father likes to subject her partners to insidious forms of trial by ordeal. After Ava's friends leave, she asks him again why he is acting so aloof and strange, but Vos swears that Tate's fine. This upsets Ava, so Vos makes love to her to make up for it. During the intercourse, Tate again fights to regain control of his body, but without success. The next day, Girder asks Vos to calibrate and prepare for the party that night. At the party, Ava gives Vos a pep talk before taking him to her sadist father. As soon as John meets Vos, John takes a dig at Tate and the low-level job he found for him. Vos then grabs himself a drink and finds an aloof part of John's mansion to talk to her handler. Girder instructs Vos to get into a fight with John and get herself thrown out of the party very publicly. Vos complies. Vos pretends to be drunk and demands an apology from John for patronizing Tate earlier in front of his fiancée. John tries to keep his calm and tells Vos to go away, but Vos replies that Tate will go away when Ava's done having his ding-a-ling in her mouth. Vos then tries to put her hands on John, and that's when security intervenes. Ava tries to stop her fiancé, but Vos calls her a bitch, and the security throws Vos out of the party, creating a public spectacle. After the guests leave, Vos pulls out her gun and goes back inside. Meanwhile, John convinces Ava to stay with him for the night. He also asks her to drink with him, but Ava goes to bed. After Ava leaves for bed, Vos arrives and picks a fight with John again. John tries to avoid another altercation and proceeds to go to bed, but Vos attacks him with a metal rod instead of finishing him off with the gun. The commotion attracts Ava's attention, and she catches Tate red-handed. She tries to run away, but Vos sprays her with bullets, killing her. After taking Ava out, Vos attempts to flee by forcing Tate to shoot himself, but discovers she cannot make him pull the trigger. It seems Tate is still fighting to regain control over his body. In an act of rebellion, Tate grabs a shard of glass and stabs himself in the skull. This damages the implant, and Vos discovers she cannot leave Tate's body or overpower his will. Tate, who has regained control, is unsure why he killed his girlfriend. The traumatized and disoriented Tate flees from the crime scene and changes into clean clothes in a public washroom. He is contacted by Girder, who asks to meet him, but he hangs up on her and goes over to his ex-girlfriend Rita's apartment. Tate tells her that he had a fight with Ava and he needs a place to stay. Rita pities him and takes him in. However, when Rita leaves him alone to take a shower, Vos momentarily regains control over Tate's body and kills Rita. Meanwhile, it is revealed that John has survived the attack and is in a stable condition. As Tate learns about it through the news, Eddie arrives at Rita's apartment. Eddie claims that Rita called him. However, when Tate turns his back towards him, Eddie sedates him. It turns out Eddie also works for Girder. Eddie helps Vos regain control, and Vos asks him to help her take Tate's life, but Eddie suggests she do it herself. Vos tries her best to go through with the suicide, but the attempt fails. Vos is unable to make Tate kill himself, and instead, Tate becomes aware of her presence inside his body. Tate's consciousness overpowers her in a psychic confrontation, and he kills Eddie during the internal battle. Tate also gains access to memories of Vos's husband, child, and home. He then goes over to Vos's home and holds her husband at gunpoint, demanding to know what she did to him. Left with no choice, Vos appears. However, instead of trying to protect her family, Vos provokes Tate into killing Michael. Michael fights back and knocks the gun from Tate's hand, but Tate kills him with a meat cleaver. As Tate wraps his mind around what he did, Ira stabs him in the throat. Before passing away, Tate fatally shoots Ira. It is then revealed that in Tate's final moments, Vos was in control and she shot her own son. Vos finally returns to her own body, and she discovers that Girder had taken control of Ira to end her struggle with Tate. With Ira and Michael both dead, she is now free of all human attachments, just like Girder wanted. In another debriefing session, Vos sorts through the same personal objects from the beginning of the film. She again identifies the butterfly, but this time she does not express any guilt for killing it, and Girder smiles.